The summer heat over West Texas had always been brutal, but nothing felt quite like this. Animals were fleeing their habitats in erratic herds. Skies swarmed with frightened birds, and beneath the earth, something was stirring. In the border town of El Risco, 28-year-old entomologist Dr. Kyla Voss had been tracking seismic anomalies not caused by earthquakes, but movement. Deep movement. Her drone footage captured strange underground patterns crisscrossing under the desert. Ant tunnels, but not like anything anyone had seen. Her research partner, ex-military survivalist and engineer Marco Reyes, leaned over her shoulder in her RV-turned lab as she zoomed in on a live thermal map. "That's not a colony," he muttered. "That's an invasion." Kyla nodded grimly. "They're coordinated across hundreds of miles, and they're not acting like ants. They're adapting too fast. They've been genetically modified or evolved in isolation." Marco raised an eyebrow. "Modified? You're saying someone created these?" Before she could answer, the ground beneath them trembled, and a chorus of screams rang out from the edge of town. Kyla and Marco rushed outside. From the horizon, a dark mass rose like a tidal wave. The swarm was coming. Thousands, millions of shimmering, red-black ants the size of house cats, surging like liquid death. They devoured everything in their path: cattle, wood, tires. Metal bent beneath their acid-drenched mandibles. The town went into chaos. Sheriff Halden tried to maintain order, but communications dropped. Power grids fried. The ants had a hive intelligence, attacking infrastructure first. Kyla and Marco made it back to the RV, sealing themselves inside as the swarm rushed past. "They're looking for something," she whispered. "They're not feeding, they're searching." Marco clenched his fists. "We need to get to the base, the one in Black Mesa." Kyla hesitated. Black Mesa was a decommissioned military bioresearch facility 60 miles east. "You think this is connected to Project Inferno?" Marco didn't answer, just started the RV. The road was carnage. Abandoned vehicles, chewed through tires. Even the air shimmered with pheromones, so strong they burned the throat. But when they arrived at the base, they found more than secrecy. They found the truth. Buried beneath the facility was a hatch, one Kyla had seen only once before, during her government internship. They pried it open with Marco's tools and descended into the cold. Inside were cages, vats, scorched documents, and a single survivor, Dr. Alexis Bryn, Kyla's former mentor, now frail and trembling, skin marked with old burns. "You brought it here," Alexis whispered. "You followed the trail. The ants, they remember you." Kyla froze. "What do you mean, remember me?" Alexis, coughing, revealed everything. A decade ago, under Project Inferno, Kyla had helped sequence ant DNA to enhance neural cohesion for use in disaster recovery microrobots. But the trials failed. The queen escaped, and the base was shut down. What no one realized was that the queen had already begun nesting underground. Kyla backed away, horrified. didn't authorize that weaponization. Alexis leaned forward. But you gave them intelligence. You taught them to learn, and now they're here for you. Suddenly, the ceiling vibrated. A piercing screech filled the room. The queen had arrived, massive, armored, glowing with pheromonal light. Her antennae writhed like serpents, and her eyes locked on Kyla's. And then something impossible happened. She spoke. Not in words, but in images, emotions, rage, betrayal, memory. A deep bond formed in the early trials now twisted into something monstrous. Kyla, in the queen's mind, was a mother, a betrayer, and now a target. Marco pulled her back, snapping her out of the trance, and opened fire with a plasma rifle pulled from the base armory. The queen shrieked and withdrew, but not before dozens of giant soldier ants poured in. The escape was brutal. Alexis died shielding them with a self-destruct device. The base imploded, but the queen escaped. Back at El Risco, there was only fire and rubble. Survivors were few. Marco, wounded, fell unconscious, but not before murmuring something to Kyla. "You can end this. You're the only one who can." Kyla knew what she had to do. She returned to the queen's path, not to kill her, but to merge with her. Using a neural interface device she rebuilt from the base fragments, Kyla amplified her thoughts, sent waves of empathy, truth, pain. She didn't run. She walked into the heart of the swarm. The ants parted. The queen stood waiting, towering, burning, screaming through a mind filled with vengeance. But Kyla reached out, let her memories flow of experiments, of guilt, of wanting to help, and most of all, love for life, for Marco, for the world she'd endangered. The queen paused, and then silenced the swarm. Kyla fell to her knees. The connection nearly shattered her mind, but the hive listened, and after a long moment, the queen turned and retreated, taking the swarm with her. Underground, into the earth once more. The nightmare was over. Weeks later, cleanup crews worked to rebuild Texas. El Risco would take years to heal. Kyla, recovering beside Marco in a desert field hospital, looked to the horizon. "I didn't destroy them," she whispered. Marco took her hand. "Maybe that's the point. You gave them a choice. A choice not of extermination, but evolution." Far beneath the surface, the queen nested once again, watching, waiting, learning, but this time not to conquer. This time, perhaps, to coexist until someone forgot the lesson again. And then the swarm would return,